Welcome to the Act Out Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Tomlin, and we have a special treat today. We have someone not just of the people, not just by the people. She's for the people. Kate.
Allegedly.
Kate Powell. Kate, how are you?
I'm very tired, but also very excited for this conversation. So
I reached out to you, and I was like, well, there is about a 0.0001% chance that she will respond to me. And then whenever you did, I was like,
oh gosh, that's so nice. I do try to be responsive as much as possible.
So you and I, we've only met one other time,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just very briefly at Mark Warner's kickoff campaign. And I was like, man, she is even cooler in person than she is on her videos. So just thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate it. I really appreciate people like out in the real world talking to me, because I usually feel like I'm just screaming into the void, and I think you guys are the cool ones for actually like hanging out with me. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Anytime I get compared to a cool kid, I'm going to accept that compliment all day long.
Take it. Bless it.
So, I figured since we have such a special guest, it's only fair that we break every societal rule that you're supposed to have. Mm-hmm. And let's just get really deep on religion and politics.
Perfect. Let's do it. Let's go super personal right away.
Well, I told you that you were one of my favorite content creators because you talk a lot about politics,
because I talk a lot.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I think that's probably a good quality to have in a content creator.
Yeah, probably.
But you talk a lot about politics, and then I didn't realize that you also kind of had the religion angle as well.
Yes.
And so you are Pastor Kate as well?
A long time ago. I used to moonlight as a youth pastor, youth ministry director, whatever you want to call it, back in the before times, while I was still a bit of a conservative leaning person. So, which is a whole story that I believe we will get into. So,
you and I kind of spoke just very briefly off camera, and that you said that you were born in Illinois. Is that correct?
Correct. I was born right outside of Chicago, so I'm technically like a born city girl, but I was in the suburbs. So I mean, take that for what it's worth. But my family, fairly early on in my childhood, moved us to Arkansas. And then we were also in central Illinois for a little while. Back to Arkansas. My mom worked for Walmart, in case you're wondering. There's no military there.
Oh, okay, the Arkansas.
Yeah, that's
yep.
the Arkansas thing. And then we kicked over to Virginia when I was in high school. So I've been in the South. I've been in the Midwest. But in the belt buckle of the Bible Belt, and also just, generally in the South, I think it's fairly religious, sectarian, that type of thing. So I, have an evangelical upbringing. For those of you who are looking for the word, evangelical Christianity was the thing. Was at a Pentecostal church for a little while. I've been at other I've been at other more Southern Baptist, or when they started calling themselves community churches, that's the same thing. If you see a community church, it used to be a Baptist church usually. So that's my general religious upbringing. And then
was your family religious?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
My parents.
So you were born into it.
I was basically born into it, and my parents are both previously Catholic, and then they moved over to Protestantism, evangelical Christianity, and I, pretty early on in childhood would say that I was very bought in, very much believed. It was not one of those my parents believe it, so I guess I believe it too. I mean, I can remember as early as 6 or 7 being pretty I agree with this, I believe this. The whole relationship with God aspect was really important to me. Still is in some ways. I won't go down that rabbit hole right now, but I really, truly had a personal faith. These are all sorry everybody for trigger warnings probably.
About to say
ooh. But no, I mean, but it was real. And as far as me genuinely believing it. When I went to...
What was the doctrine? Whenever you were first, growing up into it, what was your conception of Christianity?
Yeah, got it. Okay, so I definitely understood it a couple different ways. So C.S. Lewis is one of my favorite lay theologians. He would be mad if I called him a theologian because he didn't technically have formal training. So lay theologians. I understood the substitutionary atonement, which is the whole Jesus died for our sins thing. I understood it. It wasn't the primary thing for me, though. And quite frankly, as I got older, I became less interested in the Jesus died for our sins, and I never really had that much interest in hell either.
Okay. Oh.
So the whole idea, the eschatological thing is the fancy word, but the whole where do we go after we die? I didn't really care that much.
Wow.
Interestingly, right? And guys, my mind is weird. I spend a lot of time thinking about life, the universe, and everything. And so
samesies.
Right. So but these are things that are very close to the Baptist church. And so it was certainly part of my whole zeitgeist, if you will. What I was most interested in, though, was the relational aspect. The whole fatherhood aspect of God was really, really interesting to me and very personal, but also the values of the caring for the least of these. I really felt okay, if this is real, if I believe this, then I need to orient my life to taking care of people who can't take care of themselves, who don't have a voice. The parable, the triplet parable of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the prodigal son. It's my favorite part of scripture. And so those are as far as my conceptual understanding of what is faith, it was God as Father, and we're supposed to take care of people, full stop. Yeah. The whole I want to be saved from hell thing, it really was I knew it was there, and I would say, yeah, I believe that's a thing. It just was not a priority for me, really, at all. So
that is so unlike me at all.
You were in the
It was so I grew up in the South, in a very rural area, and around the time I was 3 years old, the first time I watched a Passion play.
Yes,
where they will go through it starts at the beginning of Jesus's ministry. Right. Goes to the execution, and man, they really go hard on that that crucifixion.
Yeah.
And I think around that time, my parents thought that I was too mature for children's church.
Right.
So they had me go to the adult service. And every single Sunday.
Fire and brimstone.
Right. Well, fire and brimstone was best case scenario. Because there's also the rapture that could happen.
Correct, the rapture.
Right now, as we are talking, Jesus.
Did you read the Left
back.
Behind books?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
yes,
of course.
There's Nikolai Carpathia.
Guys, yeah, he's coming for us, guys. They're actually really great page turners.
They
everyone
really are.
if you read them as fantasy, as fiction, they're fun. Okay, but unfortunately, many people did not read them as fiction. They read them as
I was reading them as prophecy.
Right. Yes, yeah.
Very much.
And
so.
A lot of us were, and. That I will say that I enjoyed that whole thing as far as a what if, but I really struggled with the whole what's it called? The remnant idea and the tribulation idea.
Yes, yeah.
I really struggled with that. I really was this just seems very counter to what we say, who we say God is and what we say God is.
How did you understand the rapture to occur?
Again, because I didn't care. I was a bit I don't know. I mean, I was sure, maybe it's the clothes are all in a pile and we all disappear in the twinkling of an eye and all this kind of thing. Again, trigger warning, guys. We're probably gonna really
I definitely need to put trigger warnings at the beginning
yeah,
of this.
if it's not in the show notes, you're gonna get sued. But I didn't again, it was one of those things where I was sure, maybe this is it. And then I just didn't. It really just wasn't something that I cared a whole lot about moving forward. I will say that the one thing, there was an overarching theme, and this will become clear later. The whole purity culture thing, being a woman, yes. Raised in this, that did, gum. Yeah, another trigger warning. That did resonate with me a lot, but I was less concerned about it in again the eschatological afterlife, what happens when we die thing. Will I go to heaven? And just more again, if I really believe this, I should be pure of heart, I should be pure of mind and body, and like all this kind of stuff. And so when I was thinking about like what is the rapture, I was more like concerned is like, am I going to be good enough for God? This person that I love, right? Like, because again, the relational aspect thing. So it was very much like I wanted to please a parent. So that was like kind of all of the doctrine that really got its way into me, that was probably the more insidious one. Like I might have like slipped the net of like I'm a, Jesus died for my sins and I'm going to go to heaven thing, but the purity culture thing really got its claws in me. So
I am going to yes and you there, because purity culture also hit me, and it started a bit of sexism.
Right.
Because purity culture made it seem like it was your responsibility to guard, to guard like my like lustful desires.
Right.
And to put the onus on you,
right,
and not me. It was, in hindsight, the beginning of like, a lot of things that I've had to unpack.
Purity culture is so toxic to men and women, and however you identify, non-binary. Like it is incredibly, it's incredibly dangerous for everybody, because, like you said, for men, first of all, it treats you like you're superior somehow, and then also somehow very inferior, that you have zero control over anything that you do. You need a woman to ensure that you remain normal, acting right, that kind of thing. What was she wearing? All that kind of thing. And so it's really like, for men, you're in this weird paradox in purity culture where you're like, I'm the worst. I am a horrible monster. And good thing these women are around to wear clothes that cover up so that I don't sin. And then also the women are fallen creatures. Eve ate the apple, yada, yada, yada. And I am endowed with God's power to lead forever and always. Amen, no matter what.
That actually, you just touched on another big thing that has taken me so long to unpack, and the idea of original sin, and that humans are inherently bad.
Right.
That mindset was deeply ingrained to me, to the point where, now I consider myself an agnostic atheist. I am still unpacking like that, even though I no longer believe in the church. And what's really unique there is that what it did is, like, for you, I would think that you were inherently good and that you were fine, like now. But me, there was a sense of like deep shame and feeling like I was wrong and unworthy.
Right.
And so I'm kind of curious, did you kind of notice that? Like, did you have that belief first of all?
The original sin thing?
In original sin. And
I had the belief in original sin. I definitely applied it to myself more than other people. It sounds like we had a similar sort of approach to that. Again, because I did understand the whole loving others and serving others and whatnot really well. I think I needed somewhere for that to go. And so I ended up being the place where it went. As far as like how I related to myself, I am a type A, perfectionistic, apparently Enneagram 1. I just learned that recently because some people made me figure it out.
What's the Enneagram 1 mean?
It's a personality test. Some people are like, yes, right now as they're listening, but it's a personality test. It just means like the domineering type A, super organized, super leader one, which works really well in a patriarchal situation like the Evangelical Christian Church. Spoiler, does not. But yeah, so sorry, to get back on track, the original sin doctrine, again, I was aware of it. I didn't, because I was like, the whole Jesus died for our sins, I'm going to heaven or whatever, that part is so instrumental to it. I really did not spend a whole lot of time dwelling on it. But if I spent time going like, who's a filthy sinner? Me.
Yep.
This girl. Yeah.
And probably over like the most mundane thing in the world as well.
And I still have that. I've literally was like, as I was coming here today, I remember this incident from like 17 years ago, easily, might have been more than that, of just like a time where I'd made a mistake and like said something to somebody about, like, I thought they had made the mistake, but I had made the mistake or whatever. And I hadn't handled it really well because I was like really upset about it. And I'm like, why am I thinking about this 17 years? But yeah, like I still absolutely am like, still struggle with that. And, my long suffering therapist helps me a lot work through that.
Whenever you were kind of growing up, was there how did religion play like into the community that you were involved in? Like, was it a very big part, or was it kind of distinguished?
It was a huge part because I would say growing up and then eventually as an adult too, which I'm sure we'll get into, religion and religious like organizations were the entirety of the social structure almost. By the time I was in high school, like living here in Virginia, my parents had kind of stopped attending church, but I continued to go.
Oh, and interesting.
Right. Yeah. I took myself, again, I really believed it. And the relational aspect, again, being so important to me, but also the relational aspect with my fellow Christians was huge to me. And really, the church was my community. So as far as like how it played into me having like a social life and a purpose, a place to be every week, that was it. That was the main deal.
That is pretty much exactly like my story. So like even after my parents like stopped going consistently, we would go just enough to where like I would kind of like backslide and would like be like, I'm pretty sure like this doesn't seem like legit,
Right.
And then we'd go to church and there would be like that emotional hook.
Yep.
And I'd be like,
the altar call.
I am the worst person
Recommitting
in the
my
world.
life.
Yes.
Yes.
Did you think, did you think, did you think like a once saved, always saved, or is it something that was a continuous, you had to do check-ins?
So what I did was there's a difference between salvation and sanctification. So I did believe once saved, always saved. I also believe that faith without works is dead, as Paul writes in the New Testament. And so, and by the way, I would say that like now, today, that latter belief is more important to me of like, if we're going to have this set of values, we need to live this set of values. So again, though, I think because I was so unpreoccupied with the afterlife, because the whole salvation thing is all about where do you go when you die? And I was just like, I don't know. I don't even know what that looks like. I really don't want to sit here and speculate about heaven and hell all day long. I don't even know like what that means. And so I just, it was kind of one of those things where I was like, I'm just going to choose not to really deal with it because I feel like we can't know a whole lot. Part of being the type of person that I am is that I have kind of a dual personality going on. I have actually tested for this. So I'm very creative, very open. I'm able to think about like religious and spiritual things all day long. And I'm also very evidence driven, very much like show me the proof and whatnot. So when it came to those like more speculative things, I was like, well, I really can't figure this out. And so I can't really spend that much time caring. I do know what's in front of me, and what's in front of me are people that are hurting. There's poverty everywhere. There's social injustice. I need to deal with that. So like I really latch on to the sanctification part.
Yeah.
Which interlaced with purity culture pretty well, honestly, as far as like that kind of militant, sanctification.
It's so interesting to me that like how you focused on the relational aspect, and it was very much about following Jesus's teachings.
Right.
Whereas for me, it was all about heaven or hell.
Okay. Yeah.
And what that did, though, was lead to me kind of like trying to like rank myself among people. And so as you were talking about helping out the least of these, I actually desperately needed the least of these to remain the least of these so that I felt like I had higher standing.
Yeah. I will say that earlier on in my faith journey, in my life in general, there was, I'll use the word temptation. Again, sorry guys, it's all this terminology. But there was a temptation to be very much like, look how much good I'm doing. So I wasn't immune to that, that whole dynamic. I was aware of it though. I do recall being very aware of like, being sanctimonious, and being like, oh, look how good I'm doing. So that whole, teachings of Jesus that are like, don't let your left hand know what the right hand is doing when you're doing good works. I really did try to do that. But I did feel it, like that kind of like pull to be very like, look how great I am and I'm helping people, And so I guess in some ways the whole like, you're a filthy sinner humbled me a little bit. I think that's the attempts. I'm not justifying the doctrine, by the way, but like I think that's the attempts of the doctrine to try to deal with like being human. It's natural in human to rank, to figure out where you fit in the social schema. Like that is very normal. I would say it's even more human to realize that that's happening and then to surrender your power, humble yourself. Like these are all good things to do so that you can like actually have a loving relationship. But
now that you mention that, I remember trying to figure out how to brag about humility and being like, I am having such a, like, how is God going to figure out I'm so humble here? Like, this is, man, it'd be a lot easier if I could just tell him.
It's a losing game. It'd be so much easier if we just developed some real self-love, but that is not really a path, I would argue, in evangelical Christianity as it stands right now. So,
as I look back now, I realize that like I was in a Christian nationalist movement, and the main themes that like I like really kind of think about is like as patriarchy. Like, I mean, I'm trying like it, we kind of touched on it before with purity culture and how that kind of puts the onus on the woman, but there was like doctrine. It would be very selective, very. I think it's 2 Timothy that is coming to mind,
which was not written by Paul.
Sorry. No, he only wrote like 7.
Perhaps, right? Like,
right.
And I know people are gonna flood your comments here. Yes, there's a lot of cherry picking of scripture. There's exactly one verse that says anything about whether or not a woman should like talk. It's like, the whole be silent woman verse in 2 Timothy. And the I do not permit a woman to teach is the exact words. First of all, it's pseudepigraphical, which is a fancy word for almost no expert. And I mean expert, not a theologian, but like scholarly, historical expertise. Does not believe 2 Timothy was written by the historical Paul. Yeah. Nobody thinks that. Or 1 Timothy or Titus, any of the pastoral epistles, which is where you find actually most of the patriarchal schema for Christianity. They're like, Paul didn't write that. It was someone else pretending to be Paul. And you got people who will turn around and be like, well, who cares if it was actually Paul? Like, we should just, and I'm like, okay. Well, at that point, we've kind of just like lost the plot. But regardless, it is definitely a cherry pick. It is very frustrating to listen to as a woman. Yeah. It frustrated me even when I was deep in it. And I honestly, I bucked it entirely. That was definitely a part that I was like, nope, don't care. We'll continue to do me. That's probably also someone who knows the Enneagram will probably be like, that's a 1. But in like all seriousness, there were definitely certain parts that I negotiated away. And by negotiated away, I mean, I just outright rejected, even from an early age, of just being like, that's not real. So
to me, Paul seems like what he is obsessed with is getting as many people ready for the coming or for the second coming of Jesus as possible. Absolutely. I don't think he's wasting his time about who's going to preach and who's not.
That's the biggest. And again, there are much smarter people. Dan McClellan's one of my favorites, actually, but there are much smarter people who can talk about this at the highest level. But a very quick recap. One of the reasons that the pastoral epistles, 1st, 2nd Timothy, and Titus, are viewed as pseudepigraphical is because it's clearly talking about a church organism that's advanced, very well organized. Like they're thinking like 2nd or 3rd century, right? Paul was dead by then, well, long dead. And like you said, all of his other writings point to, he was very, unlike me, he was very eschatological. He was very concerned with the afterlife and the return of Jesus and all this kind of thing. And so he was like, get ready. No one knows the day. He didn't write that part, but like that was his mindset. And we got to just like don't get married, don't have children, don't worry about any of that because it's coming any minute now.
Don't get circumcised.
Right. Yeah. Don't do any of that. Like, don't worry. Like, all that's frivolous and such. And so to then go from that to suddenly like, these are the official qualifications of a pastor, and this is what an elder can do, and an elder needs to make sure their wife is doing blah blah blah, and like whatever. That's just so it's anti-Paul. Like it literally doesn't make any sense with the rest of his writing. So that is a really good point that I'm sure your comment section will be filled with people who disagree. That's fine. Disagree. It's not like any of us were there to give firsthand witnesses about who wrote what, but it seems very unlikely.
I went through after I deconstructed. I went through and just read especially the New Testament from like more of like a historical lens and trying to be like, what was going on? And I was so confused why he kept writing about like circumcision. And then I realized like, okay, imagine you're Paul and I am a Gentile that you have just converted.
Right.
And now you're going to be like, oh, just one more thing. That is going to stop so many converts.
Yeah.
But that actually brings me to something I'm super fascinated in and did not think that I would ask you this. All right. So Paul in his writings talks about going to see, I think, James, the brother of Jesus, maybe Peter. I can't remember if it's Peter. There's a couple of them. And it's basically like hung out with them for a couple of weeks, and they told me nothing that I didn't already know. That so a lot of apologists will say that means that Paul and Peter and James had the same same sense of what Christianity was.
Right.
Do you buy that?
They clearly had some differences. I think they probably had more in common than differences, but Paul, after that encounter, goes off for several years to do church elsewhere, away from Jerusalem, away from the rest of the apostles. He's clearly under the impression that he needs to be doing his own thing for a while. I think it's like 3 years. Don't quote me on that. I might have that wrong, but
I was thinking 3 years.
Yeah, it's a minute. Like he's gone for a minute doing a different ministry, and it's clear that he wants to cooperate with them, but he also calls Peter a hypocrite to his face in other places. So, because they were, he was previously a Pharisee, and he does kind of do this whole like about face of like, I'm turning away from all of that. And, that's part of his conversion experience, his Damascene conversion. And Peter and James and that whole cohort, they clearly are still very much like, but we're still like Jewish, and we need to make this Jewish. And there's clearly a difference between them. I'm not saying one is right or not. It doesn't, like, to me, that part doesn't matter. But to say that they like, you can't say that they like were completely on the same page. I don't think that makes any sense.
I 100% agree. That's kind of how I rate it. Right. And Paul kind of, and this is just, I have a bias towards, but I don't really care for Paul very often.
Yeah, neither do I.
I bet there is a writing somewhere, in like Greece about like the most annoying tent maker in all the land coming. But Paul, to me, he seems kind of like sanctimonious, and he's like, they didn't tell me nothing. Like, right. I already know everything.
I honestly think Paul and I are probably the same person. Which is probably why I don't like him very much. It's like, actually, I know everything and you do not. There we go. But yeah, no, it's clear that he had trouble fitting in with like everyone else. He was clearly different. He's a different duck. And so yeah, I think again to say that I'm going to quote Dan McClellan again. Dan, if you're hearing this, I'm a huge fan. But he talks a lot about the univocality of the Bible, as in there isn't like the Bible is not univocal, because people are always trying to say it's like, it's God's word and everybody's like, everything agrees with everything else. It's like, no, it really doesn't. And this relationship between Paul and the rest of the apostles, I think, is a great example. They do not agree. He clearly has very different ideas for what should and should not be happening versus the rest of the Jewish cohort. And it's not, I think it's probably the clearest example of like, we can have some ideological disagreements, but what seems to have held it together are some of the things I talked about earlier, which is, what are we on this earth to do?
Mhm.
Like, what is our ministry? And, and that relational aspect with God, a God, full disclosure, I'm still a theist.
Mhm.
Like, a deist, like, I still believe that there is such a being. My relationship with said being is complicated, to say the least. But
your Facebook official status or relationship
it's
status is
complicated.
complicated.
Absolutely.
It's complicated with Yahweh.
Right. It's complicated with Yahweh. It will probably remain so till the day I die. So, and then I don't know what happens after that, to bring it full circle.
You saying the univocality kind of reminded me of so growing up, I had this kind of like dual image of God where he was this, and it was certainly he, Father God,
Right.
was like the super loving, forgiving
Mhm.
God. And then there was this like, yes, smite me, almighty smiter God.
Right. Yes.
Um, and I think that was actually kind of easy for me to get
Mhm.
because growing up, I felt like my dad kind of
Yeah.
had that same kind of thing.
Right.
But you saying the univocality made me realize that, like, actually in the Old Testament, it kind of smashes together
Mhm.
the God El and the God Yahweh.
Mhm.
And so that's why you kind of get this like juxtaposition of
Yeah.
the strong warrior God
Right.
and the forgiving God.
Yeah. And I'm going to speak way out of my scope if I try to unpack like the Old Testament version of God, because there's a lot there, and it is by no means unified in how it portrays God, or gods, which is a thing.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it's not my scope of practice and or my area of expertise, but it's certainly there's, again, from the scholarly historical record, there's clearly a lot of different interpretations and a lot of different conceptions of who and what God is. That's just fact.
You said that you would that you would very much focused on that like relational aspect with God. Did you kind of have a dual image of the like loving God and the kind of like the judging one, or is it more of the loving? Because you seem to have gotten a lot of the positive aspects of like Jesus's teachings and stuff, and they were really like imbued in you growing up.
Yeah, sorry. I think God as Father, as loving Father, was probably the majority of how I understood. So again, it was male, centric and all this kind of thing. Again, now it's complicated, but as far as like a loving parent, very much that. So even I didn't really see much of like the smiter, except in those moments where I was like filled with self-hatred, really worried about my purity, like all those kind of thing. But again, that was more, I felt it less from God and more like, I'm ashamed to go before this loving parent like this. Like it was very self-directed, and I was pretty clear that it was self-directed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really, it was more like, don't look at me like, well, until I fix this. But yeah, I didn't, the smiting thing, I didn't really see. I couldn't imagine like the whole Sodom and Gomorrah thing. I was always like, I don't understand this. This doesn't seem right. The tribulation thing, like I really struggle with it. I love the books. Again, I'll read them all day long as fiction, but like the idea that was real, I was like, this is like cruel and unusual, and like, why?
That confusion would bring so much shame to me, though, like, because I'd be like, there's clearly something that I just can't
I'm
understand.
confused, right?
Yeah.
And that's usually how the church responds to you too, is like, God's ways are unknowable, his ways are higher, that's how you deal with anything that's like inconsistent, which is frustrating. But again, to answer your question, I definitely focused more on God as a loving parent, and I think it probably gave me, and as God as a loving parent, as regards to the church, I viewed it as like, this is a super loving place, it's a super safe place. It's where I'm safe. And I want to be careful here to not like inflict self-blame where there isn't any. My leanings towards that, I think, gave me a lot of rose-colored glasses about the institution. And the unlearning of that was very painful, very difficult, because, it was kind of one of those, like, I benefit of the doubt, don't see what I don't, don't see it until it was like blowing up in my face. So.
Yeah. And that is it's the worst feeling. Whenever like your brain has tried so hard for to get you not to see something, and then it just like floods in all at once, and then and like no matter what, you just cannot unsee it. It's
once you see it, over.
That has been like my like with patriarchy. Like once you see like just the slightest little bit, it just and
like, ew.
Yes, it's like, oh God, it's the worst. What I think is so interesting is that kind of like how we went at it from different paths, but ended up pretty much kind of like in similar situations. So I assumed that either I was going to like trip and fall down the steps and die after our conversation, or Jesus is going to come back right now. And I did not believe in the like once saved, always saved thing. To me, you had to be like in it to win it.
Right.
And so what that did is it caused me to constantly survey for signs that I was in God's favor.
Right.
The easiest way that I could do that was by like knowing that I was smart. I was like, God favors me because I am intelligent. And so there are things that I can do, and you're like, wow, like that's amazing. But then on the reverse end, there are plenty of other things I can't do at all. But what happened? Instead of like being like, oh, I'm really good at this thing, I bet if I just like try a little harder, I can maybe make a mistake, but like I'll get better at this. I couldn't afford to make a mistake, because making a mistake meant that I wasn't saved anymore.
Yeah.
And so even now, like to this day, the things that I like struggle with, like technology, I am a self-identified boomer to this day.
You're a Luddite.
And it's because I was so afraid to get out of my comfort zone.
Right. You do have to be willing to break it. Right.
It was a matter of like life or death, like heaven and hell.
Right. Yeah. That unwillingness to again, that's like, it's the salvation issue, it's the purity culture issue, it's all of those things is very much like, if you break it, it's done. Right? It's done forever. There's no recovering, there's no going back from that. And you can only, if like at best case, you can hope that God like forgives you in his infinite mercy or whatever, but it's never really the same. And yeah, when that's the doctrine, it's very hard to like, this is very normal to believe this. Like it's, when I was a youth pastor, one of the things that I found myself doing constantly was focusing on like very much away from the purity culture thing, away from the all mistakes or whatever, and focusing more on the learning and the service and whatnot. I wouldn't have been able to tell you at the time why I was doing that, but it was in reaction to what you were just describing, which was like, I did not want to put this burden on these young people of like, you better figure it out and get it together. There's nothing for you. There's no grace for you. And that doesn't mean that like because I'm still who I am, I like in the actual execution of ministry, I could be very exacting, very like hard on myself, hard on other people or whatnot. But as far as like the doctrine that I was trying to convey, again, I wanted like learning and questions and like, let's talk about the hard stuff. And then also let's get out into the community and do service and raise money for things and all that kind of thing. So that's what I found myself focusing on, which I'm glad of. now, looking back, because it, I'm so glad that we did not engage whatsoever in like, let's talk about your purity or whatever. That really wasn't part of the discussion at all.
You saying that brings up my my favorite favorite parable of the Bible, and I can't remember what book it's in, but one of the one of the disciples asked Jesus, like, how do we, how are we going to have like everlasting life? Jesus says, to some, I am going to say, get away from me. You don't know me.
Mm-hmm.
For when I was hungry,
Yes.
you didn't feed me.
Yeah.
When I was poor, you didn't like clothe me. Truly, whatever you do unto the least of these, you do unto me.
This was Matthew.
Matthew. Okay.
The parable of the lambs and the goats. Yep.
I was going to say the goats and the sheep, so I'm glad I didn't.
You got goats and sheep. It's the same. Yeah. Like
okay.
Lambs or sheep.
I definitely knew that.
You got it right.
But yeah, that's my favorite verse, because it goes against everything I'd said before about the hierarchical, like trying to, what are you, like, where are you in the top 15 of all Christians? Are you William Lane Craig, or, like, where are you in this mix? But it flips that completely on its head. And the measure of greatness is, what are you doing for others?
Right. Yeah.
I think that's the kind of like message and the kind of Christianity that I could still get behind today.
Yeah. That is the aspect that remains with me. It's one of the only things that remains with me at this point. But the idea of like, what are we here for? And that one of the reasons that I rejected the eschatological stuff a lot was because it was always talking about like, when we get to heaven and the earth will pass away and whatever. And it very naturally to me, and I think to a lot of other people, and I think it's pretty obvious looking back, and it's obvious even now when you look at like Christian nationalism at this moment, is it's viewing this earth as a disposable whatever.
Like dirty rags.
Correct. And that is a horrific way to relate to the literal earth itself, but also the people on it. And I simply cannot get behind that thing. So I'm like, look, if you believing in heaven leads to that, then there's something wrong with this whole heaven thing. Like, I don't, I'm all down for, you believing in an afterlife, what that looks like. None of us know because none of us have been there. But if you being so preoccupied with that has caused you to be blind to what's in front of you, I really can't get down with that.
That is one of my biggest objections to religion. So let's say you and I are like best friends, and we're going to be. I'm putting us on a friendship arc.
Let's do it.
But let's say we're best friends, and I still I steal a pack of gum from you. Well, I don't know. I push you. If I'm going to be more inclined to ask for forgiveness and like show that I am like there's more of a instance of me wanting to do that, so long as I like try to seek you out. Right. But if I'm a Christian, all I need to do is ask the big guy upstairs.
Yeah.
And
I'm good with God.
Exactly. Do I really need Kate to forgive me?
Right. Yeah.
Like, if the
She's
all
not in
powerful
charge of it.
Yeah, exactly. I know the dude who wrote the rules.
Right. Right.
I don't like that. And then
spiritual bypassing is the fancy word for this. Yeah.
And like you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier with the spiritual bypassing of like the issues here. There are so many things that we could be doing right now. Yeah. But like, why do we need to focus on that? Because
it's going away.
In just a couple of years.
Come back any moment now. Right.
Yeah, in just a couple of years we have eternity to.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Which this is actually super fascinating to me, that the show The Good Place actually made me think of this. But the idea of eternal pleasure or of whatever, like for heaven, is sort of oxymoronic.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes against the human experience, so to speak.
It's a bit cloying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever seen The Good Place?
I haven't.
Okay.
I've seen scenes from it and whatnot, but I've never actually sat down and watched it. Not because I think it's bad. I'm not a very big TV person, so it's mostly just
you're a foster parent. I think you're also like raising kids of your own as well.
Foster parent. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you've got plenty of things
I
going
have
on. I'm sure.
Things.
But it was Lisa Kudrow was was in heaven for this episode, and everybody was just so bored.
Right.
She was like, "We've been doing this for like 927,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't just constantly have that."
Right.
But to reverse that, it's incredible to me that it was so easy to think of like a finite crime would have an infinite punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Like burning in hell forever, like totally made sense.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's like totally, I mean, I try not to get too into my comment sections because on social media, because why? But I did see something yesterday because I was posting about the latest ICE murder in Houston. And someone said, well, if he was here illegally or whatever. And I was like, why? Where is this execution is an acceptable response to something that is the equivalent of a parking ticket, which, by the way, immigration infractions are civil infraction. They are the same as you getting a speeding ticket or a parking ticket or not taking your trash to the curb on time or whatever, like those things that you can, it's not a violent crime. It's not actually criminal. Their criminals thing is so strange to me.
And there's a net positive that comes out of it as well.
Yeah.
So
and it's like immigration is complicated, like any wicked problem is, but but to look at an individual and act like that's a net negative on the country is very strange. It's a very strange thing. And this whole like, well, they might have been doing this thing wrong, so therefore we execute them. It's the same thing with like the couple who was running out of the Walmart. We execute children now because their parents were running out of a Walmart. Didn't realize that death was the penalty. But if you look at the roots of what we're talking about, it's actually not weird to these people. They're because, by the way, the Venn diagram is maybe not a complete circle, but very, very tight Venn diagram of the Christian nationalist with the hardline conservative. And, it makes sense in that worldview of like, well, it's good enough for God. You screw up, straight to the bad place, right? Forever, always. Again, I'm a big C.S. Lewis fan, and his work, The Great Divorce, was the closest I ever got to caring about what happened in an afterlife, because he very much painted, and I'm not saying it's completely correct. Again, no one's been there and can't come back that I'm aware of, so it's not like we know. But I love the way he portrayed it of people who want to be miserable and lonely and cut off from people. That's hell, and they will remain there because that's where they want to be, and you can't actually convince them to do anything else. And it's less about a time, an arbitrary time that no one but the Father knows, and like that kind of thing, and more about a choice by the human. I have been places here and overseas, where I'm like, this is hell. When Alex Preddy was shot in Minneapolis, I was like, this is hell. That's hell. Like, watching that on video, I think was so visceral for us because we were like, that's hell. Like, this cold-blooded murder out of nowhere. And the more you learned about it, the more you were like, we are in hell. And again, that's the closest I've ever gotten to being like caring about what the quote unquote afterlife looks like. But I'm like, I think we experience true, like, great pleasure, great joy and everything. And also things that are like, this can't be, And I think what I will say for spirituality is that there is clearly something in our humanity that rejects one and pursues the other, right? Like, it's unless there's like a significant psychological illness going on, you're not chasing those hellish things, right? And rejecting joy. And even then it's like that chasing is like somehow gotten tied into joy, and it's, you know, it's a disorder. Like we talk about it in those terms for that reason. But like most of humanity has a clear preference. And so I think that spirituality is a great way to understand that, right? And to understand our preference and to understand what we're like leaning towards and whatnot. I don't think it's great for predicting the future. Like I think that's the part that where it gets off the rails, and that's where you end up with people who think, oh well, if he was not with legal status and he was perhaps running away, even though it doesn't look like there's even evidence of that, as far as this Houston case is concerned, that like literal death is justified. Oh, okay. I guess, you know, like examine what you're saying, please. But I don't have much hope that people who are talking like that are examining too much of anything. So.
It is so fascinating to me how you described hell as cold.
Mm-hmm.
And because that goes obviously very much against the like fire and stuff. But as you were describing,
it's very cold.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that is, I have chills like talking about like that really blew my mind, but you're absolutely correct. I'm not like a hard materialist or anything. Like I'm not like rejecting spirituality. It is at the, like, I've seen what spirituality can do whenever it's been like bastardized and really taken advantage of. So now it's led me to the point where like I really have to see evidence before, before I kind of like go over to that. And me trying to explain that made me completely lose my train of thought on where I was going there.
It's totally, but you know, I mean, like that, the horrors that we've seen from how religion can co-opt spirituality, because they're not the same thing. Spirituality and religion are not the same thing. But religion can co-opt it. It can also organize it into a really destructive thing. It can also be used for good.
Yeah.
To me, it's a tool for understanding our world, and you can use it in a positive way or you can use it in a negative way. It's like the internet. As someone who's on the internet way too much,
I have literally made that analogy the other day.
Right.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah. It's truly like we are meaning making creatures. That's what we do as humans. So it's perfectly natural to try to figure out like, why are we here? Why did that happen? Yada yada. And so between science and spirituality and everything else, I think we can continue to like be in community with each other and solve problems and like all this kind of thing. But yeah, it's when you take that thing and you start weaponizing it that it's like, now we have a problem. we need to address that.
I don't know what just made me think of this, but like as I was like growing up, I'd do a lot of like the men's events and stuff, and there was a very specific thing that a man was supposed to be like in the growing up in the church. It was the head of the house, the spiritual leader, and there would be this like imagery of like lions. Like there would always be the lion. That was like the thing.
Yeah.
And now like looking back on it, it actually makes perfect sense that the lion would be the symbol of a Christian nationalist man. Like, think about a lion pride.
Yeah.
Who does all the work?
The lionesses.
Yes. They hunt. They take care of the cubs.
And they keep the lion, the guy in line.
What does the guy do? He sleeps and then gets super defensive at the slightest sign of a threat.
And makes babies.
Yes.
Right. Like that's what he does. Right. And it's very it is because they're using like the Lion of Judah and like all that other kind of imagery. But yeah, when you do know how lion prides actually work, it's like interesting that you view this as like, this is the ultimate whatever, where I would say like a male lion is usually one of the most useless animals out on the savannah. And like you said, the lionesses are doing most of the work. But like, I definitely, I think to very briefly go off on a gender tangent, because
I actually wanted to go there. So
great. Let's go there. So when it comes to like gender and spirituality, especially when we're talking about like evangelicalism, It's like we've done such a disservice to the entire thing. There's like this beautiful spectrum of how men, women, non-binary show up in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and we get the best of all of it. And if you pin an evangelical Christian to the wall and say, is God a man or a woman? If you pin them to the wall about it, they will begrudgingly, reluctantly, like while choking, admit that God is non-binary. They will.
Mm-hmm.
They won't say non-binary because they're afraid of that word, but they'll say he's neither man nor woman. They'll say he.
Yes.
You know, but literally, he's neither man nor woman. God is neither man nor woman. So they understand. Sort of. There's at least a part of them that realizes that they cannot say that God is just male, because that's not true. And when we say we're made in his image, that we have to admit that like there were two parts of creation according to the creation poem in Genesis. And you know, that's like, but again, the way that those two poles, I guess, if you want to think of it that way, show up, and the spectrum that's between, I think is like actually very divine, very beautiful, very indicative of like a creator, a master artist who was like, look at all these different things I can do. It's like, so like a master painter, right? They have, you know, red, blue, and yellow. But then from that, they're able to create infinite whatever. Or a master audio engineer. I used to be an audio engineer a million years ago. And, you know, someone who can take any number of instruments, songwriters, musicians, whatever, shove them into a room, and a one-of-a-kind thing comes out. It's so interesting to me listening to people who ostensibly say, I believe in a creator, a creative process that created all of this. Fine, I'm down with that. What in the world makes you think that such a being would be like, yes, I'm actually only satisfied with a man who wears baseball caps, no offense, and goes to sports ball games and lifts weights and
What do you say? No offense there.
Right, yeah, right, exactly. And wears only pants and like all this kind of thing. And a woman who only wears a skirt, only cooks at home, blah, blah, blah. Why do we think that an infinitely loving, interesting creator being is only able to do those two things? That's very strange to me. So that to me is like one of those like if you try to marry those doctrines together, they don't make any sense at all. And it's also just like we have a bazillion, billions of human beings walking around that show us that that's not how it works. It's very like, you talk about evidence. It's just very self-evident. Like you have to really just turn off your brain and your eyes and your ears and everything else to remain there.
As you were saying that, it made me realize I did kind of exactly what you like what you were talking about, where the patriarchal church will put into, you know, there's man, there's woman. And you just said there are a bazillion examples of things that don't fit.
Right.
I took that as they were wrong. That bazillion examples, you're wrong. You need to be in one of those two areas.
Well, and that's part of the whole, like, well, it's a fallen world and we're all sinning and like, because we're all outside of God's intended purposes. And if we just got back to those intended purposes right there. And, you know, again, if it's like, if there was evidence that being outside of those boxes led to hell, right? Led to the hellishness that I was just describing earlier, I could get with you. There is no evidence of that. There is evidence that you imposing that causes the hellish circumstances. There is no evidence that being gay, being bisexual, being, you know, non-monogamous, like all those kinds of things leads to hellishness. The hellishness, as I was describing, the isolation and the loneliness and whatever. Those things of themselves. We have been studying this for a while now, and there are more people studying it more often, and every single time they come back with like, it's not really that confusing. The societal expectations are what cause the trauma and the difficulty, not the thing in and of itself. When the thing is just left alone to do the thing, like whatever that is, when the life is just left alone to live its life, it's fine. It really, it's about, square holes and round pegs and square holes, however it goes.
And what's incredible to me is like it's completely backwards. Like as you're saying it, where if we embrace our differences,
right?
If we just live and let live, like very libertarian, thing, by
honestly.
the way. Like, but for some reason
also,
they don't.
A lot of Christian nationalists claim to be libertarian, and yet you're very interested in controlling everybody else. So
right, well, because libertarian means freedom for me,
right?
Not
Yes,
for thee. That's kind of the biggest.
Sorry, libertarians. I know some of you are really mad right now, but that is something that happens. So,
what I think kind of frustrates me the most with that, like binary thinking, is how much I missed out on.
Right.
And actually, this is a very, very good example of that, because before, I'll say like pre-therapy, like therapy is kind of like my like religious conversion.
Yeah. Oh no. Same. My psychologist has had to have and continues to have several conversations with me about spirituality and religion. But anyway, go on.
So pre-therapy, I would have not been able to even like reach out to you in the first place, because it was a more overt thinking for me, because of the way that it was doctrined, but like women were not supposed to be better than men. And like you, I forgot to look at your follower count. You have a lot more followers, maybe probably like 25 or maybe 30 times more followers than I do.
I have no idea, but
yeah, I mean, I'm just making up numbers, which is like actually a testament to where I am, because usually, I would have been able to tell you before. But what really like impressed me about you was watching a long form conversation that you had with Elizabeth Dempsey Beggs. It was, oh God, it was so good. And after that was over, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try, but give her a try. I want to try to message her, but before then, I would have seen that interview, and it would not have it wouldn't have been like oh my God, like that was so good. It'd be like, nah, she's not that good. She said there. Can you believe she used a filler?
I get that in my comments all the time. Stop saying and I'm like I'm going to say it more now. Anyway.
I would have assumed that if I had the 100,000 followers, and I had the conversation with the big candidate, that would have made me whole. That would have validated me. And seeing you do the things that I want to do would have shown how strong and secure you were. And all that would have done was just reflect back every single insecurity and weakness I had.
Yeah.
And looking back now, I can actually have a little bit of a sense of pity for myself in that situation. Because in that moment, when confronted with your strength and my weakness, me getting stronger was so far out of the question. You were going to have to get weaker in order to correct this imbalance.
Right.
And what that did, or what that would have done, is made me completely lose out on a very cool conversation, but also a lot of learning opportunities. So now, and this is so long-winded, I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. I do this all the time. I wind up questions for my people sometimes, and they're like, oh my gosh, get to the point. But I'm not feeling that way at all.
Let me preface this with, I went to Oglethorpe University, a D3 school, and we were terrible at sports. If you were to ask us who our rival was, we would say Emory. If you were to ask Emory who their rival was, they'd be like, who the fuck is Oglethorpe? So keep that in mind as I say this.
I'll keep that in mind.
I see kind of you and I as sort of in a league of long form conversations. Okay, let's just say that that's a thing. I look at us now, though, as being in a like or in a non-zero sum competition.
Right.
So I can watch that interview and be like, oh, dang, that was really good.
Yeah.
I bet if I asked a question like that, or if I like did a segment like that, I bet like I could get better. So then like all of a sudden you having a great conversation, which is, you know, a win in your book,
right,
gets me to like get better.
right.
And if I can get better,
Yeah.
I consider that a win.
Yes.
So then all of a sudden your win becomes my win too.
Exactly.